There's one game left in the 2025 season, but the 49ers aren't a part of it. So they're working on getting better. How can they get better? And what should they prioritize in the draft and free agency? We've got the answers for you today on the Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast, part of the Pro Football Insiders. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. That man is Levin Black. Levin, it's Wednesday of Super Week. Any memories from when we went in 2023?
Subway, and more Subway.
That's true. We had Subway like every night for dinner.
No, we did not.
Well,
I think I had it once. No memories. I mean, it was pretty cool to meet different people, but probably actually getting to do the interview with Alex Smith was kind of cool.
That's right. I forgot about that. That was a good one. He's a good dude. Hopefully we can do that again. All right. People are talking from Radio Row. They're saying a lot of things. We can talk about maybe some of them a little bit later, but Levin had an idea for the show today, and I thought it was a pretty good one, begrudgingly. You came up with it, Levin, so you explain to the people what we're going to do on today's show.
It's top 3 draft needs, targets, top 3 free agent needs. These are our preferences in terms of how they address the roster. You can have a position on both, not that you would necessarily have them in the same spot, but if you're saying take a wide receiver at the top of free agency, you might still have them at the draft, but maybe the third need or the second need. You know, I doubt either one of us has wide receiver. Oh, yeah, go buy a $30 million receiver and draft one in the first round, but they could be on both lists still. So it's our preferences based upon what's out there in free agency and the depth at positions in the draft. You know, a position that is very top heavy. Yeah, might influence you putting it a little bit higher because if you say third, well, you're not getting it later in the draft.
So I went to work this morning. It was a very fun exercise. You can start it off. What are your top 3 areas that you want the 49ers? Oh, I should mention too. We don't know who's been franchise tagged yet. So,
yeah,
you know, obviously that would change the discussion. Right now, we're just going to look at who's out there and look, if guys get franchised, they get franchised, but we're doing this February 4th. So this is who's available. So when it comes to free agency, just, you know, take everything with a grain of salt, or is that what you say? Take it with a grain of, yeah, that's what you say.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, go ahead.
In America, we take it with grains of salt, but that's a different story. I'll start with free agency. I got defensive end at the top. I think, one, I don't trust this team to draft defense of line at this point. They've had essentially one success drafting defensive line, and it was the biggest no-brainer draft pick probably in the last 10 years. Oh, we don't need a quarterback. Quarterback went number 1. Here's Nick Bosa. Other than that, like, especially at the top of the draft, it's been miss after miss after miss. Like, Trent Williams, maybe he pans out. You know, I'm not saying that he's a bust as of now, but we don't know. I will say early returns, he was very good against the run, but you don't draft somebody without a pass rush in the first round. You know what I mean? For a defensive end. So I'm kind of lukewarm on Trent Williams going forward. I hope that he develops a pass rush, but if he doesn't, that alone makes it not that good of a pick, because if you're drafting defensive end at the top of the draft, you should be getting pass rush. But you got Solomon Thomas, you got Kinlaw, lots of misses at defensive end. They need a speed rusher, and that's even harder to find, I think, in the draft when you're not at the top, because the speed rushers are what go early. So to me, the top need in free agency, where they should say this is definitely a spot that we are not waiting until the draft to try to find, is defensive end. And I've already mentioned, I would love to get Khalil Mack. I think with Raheem Morris, it's an even better fit because Khalil Mack can be a defensive end that has a speed rush, but he can also go to be linebacker. He's played in 3-4 systems. He's played in 4-3 systems. And I think Raheem Morris is probably going to be mixing and matching and changing the scheme back and forth depending on where he sees the advantage in a matchup. And Khalil Mack gives him that flexibility.
I did have defensive line on my free agent priority list. I didn't have it number one, however. So I agree with a lot of what you said. I'll respond to that, and then we'll talk about what I did have at number one. I actually have it on both my lists. Like, you can never have enough good defensive linemen ever. I think the 49ers need to add a veteran in free agency. Honestly, on a one-year deal, bring me Trey Hendrickson. Let's go. Let's not shop in the discount bin.
You're not getting a one-year deal because Trey Hendrickson is 31, has been fighting to get a long-term deal. He's going to take the most money he can get in a long-term deal because he's 31. He's probably not going to get another chance at a big deal.
Okay, 2-year deal. Yeah, we'll give you a multi-year deal, Trey Hendrickson. Come in. Let's go. Let's not shop at, the Leonard Floyd store anymore. Let's not do that. Let's get the biggest of the big guns. If we're going to sit here and do this, if we're going to do it, then let's do it right. But absolutely, Hendrickson is on the list. Even defensive tackle, I think you go there in free agency too. You need more help on the interior. You have Alfred Collins. You have CJ West. Great, but you need more. You got to add more, and you got to add real contributors there. Maybe a John Franklin Myers was someone I thought that might be, an interesting choice for them. He's shown a little pass rush throughout his career. I think he's got like 14 and a half sacks over the last 2 seasons, something like that. Give me something there. The middle of that's why the Seahawks are so disruptive. You can't do anything with the middle of their defensive line. You can't move them, and they get pressure. You get that on the 49ers, it changes the whole defense. It's, I hate to use their phrase, it's a force multiplier, as they like to say. So absolutely, I think that they should go there in free agency 1,000%.
See, I don't. I think defensive end, yes. Defensive tackle, I go the other way. I don't think that they need a huge contributor at defensive tackle. I think they need somebody that can help the depth, and I think you can find that in the 3rd, 4th round in the draft. So I push defensive tackle more towards the draft than I do free agency.
Okay, we can quibble there back and forth, but like you said, their draft in that area, spotty at best. At least with free agency, you know what you're getting, right? You're not depending on them to pick out a good one. We know who the good ones are, but they are more expensive.
Yes and no. I mean, they've brought in defensive tackles. They've never gone to free agency and spent big money, but they've traded for
Javon Hargrave,
Collins, and yeah. So that, I mean, that
it did work
helps
out.
my point even more.
Yeah.
They've gone to trade. They've gone to free agency. I did forget about Hargrave, which, not surprising, he was forgettable.
Got him. Yeah.
But they've done draft. They've done trade. They've done free agency to try to address the defensive tackle, and neither one has worked. Now, the draft hasn't worked all that well either, but one, the investment is less if you're going 3rd, 4th round. 2, they have gotten somebody like DJ Jones, which was a big success later in the draft.
Late, yeah. That's a good point. My number one free agent priority position is safety. And because I think that they already have young safeties. Like, they don't need to get younger at the position, but they need somebody they can rely on. And it doesn't have to be like a stud of studs. You don't have to, you're not trying to get Earl Thomas or Ed Reed. You just need a reliable player, someone that's going to know their assignment, that's going to be able to communicate to the other players. Because apparently, if you listen to like Dieter and Hutch, for example, they talk about the communication in the secondary was a real issue, which was part of the reason Jair Brown was playing, because he can communicate. That is one of the strengths of his. But they need somebody that can do those things. Like Tashawn Gibson was a perfect example, right? They bring him in. Nothing spectacular, not like an all-pro player, but a really solid player who understood the assignment. I think that's what they need at safety. You don't need to draft somebody. Give me a veteran that can do those things. There's a bunch of different people on the market. Nick Cross is one that I wrote down. Brian Cook from Kansas City could possibly be another. Again, I don't need first-team all-pro. Just give me better than what we saw last season, because you can't go into another year with that type of play at safety where there's coverage busts every single week.
I will be interested to see what they do at safety. I mean, Raheem Morris played college at safety, so it's kind of like Kyle Shanahan with his whole wide receiver thing. It's the area that he has extra emphasis on because he understands it at a different level than he does just being the coach of it. Does he say, no, we need a true safety? Because Raheem Morris does use single high safety some, whereas Saleh almost never does it. So does he go Kevin Byard, somebody that I've mentioned in the past that I would prefer them to go get? And I do think as a single high safety, he's a turnover machine. That's the number one thing I think they need on defense. They need somebody that's going to force turnovers, whether that's a defensive end creating pressure and actually making the quarterback throw into tight windows because he's panicking, or defensive backs that can actually freaking jump a route or just cover well enough to where they're actually there and capable of getting their hand on the ball. Because even deflections lead to interceptions a good bit. Like a lot of interceptions these days are first a tipped ball that then gets intercepted. You don't see tips. You don't see pass breakups. You see a pass breakup in the sense that, oh, the wide receiver has it, and then they get hit and they drop it. Not in it's get tipped, things like that. So Kevin Byard does interest me because while he does give up some bigger plays, he does make mistakes. He's twice now led the league in interceptions, including just this last season. He is older, but I do think safety's also got a weird recent history in that the very top guys, the top two guys that make it to free agency get big deals. But then there's this huge gulf, and there's free agents that are starting caliber safeties that they end up being the ones that they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait. And right before training camp, they sign a 1-year deal with somebody. That is happening every single year. You're seeing this huge, I think, shift in the last, I would say 5 years, maybe even a full decade, where if you're a top true Pro Bowl, all pro safety, you get paid. But if you're just a starting safety, teams go, we would rather draft or try to find a cheap young talent, see what we can get. But that also creates value for a team like the 49ers where they have the young guys already. They need a starting caliber one. So is there a guy that Raheem Morris goes, that guy fits. He's a little bit undervalued. He probably won't get a huge deal, and they can go get him for $5 million.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It's almost like when the Niners traded for Emmanuel Sanders. Like they had the young wide receivers. They needed sort of the veteran guy in the room. Sanders is obviously a good player also. But I think that's another reason that safety becomes an attractive spot for the 49ers in free agency because you're not going to have to pay free agency prices, so to speak. It's one of the rare positions where the market is kind of depressed if you're not, Kyle Hamilton, that type of guy. And that's not, you don't necessarily need to do that if you're the 49ers. So that's why
Byard is the only one that I think might get that money. And he might not because he is 32.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know, but they should explore it for sure. Check in with him early and be like, hey.
It's the position I don't want to see drafted. I don't want another young guy. I want a veteran because, as you said, communication is big. But they can't risk busting on it. They can't draft again in the third, fourth round and go, well, hopefully this guy pans out. We see potential. Because one, they already have those guys. And two, if they miss, they're once again stuck with some of the worst safety play in the league.
That's the thing. It's like, you just can't have that again. You just can't have it again. Another year of that. Absolutely not. So we agree there. It sounds like, I don't know. I mean, clearly I was correct in putting them number one. You were incorrect, but that's okay. You can be 0 for 1. It's fine.
They're on my list.
Okay. So that was your biggest priority was defensive line. Mine was safety. What's number 2 for free agent priorities?
I have wide receiver. I do think they have to get a wide receiver in free agency. Spoiler alert, they also need to get one in the draft. But in free agency, I have it number 2 because I'm not paying top of the market. I don't want Alec Pierce at probably pushing $30 million. The wide receivers in free agency, the history is the top guys, sometimes 2 or 3 guys, do get massive contracts that they couldn't get from their current team. They get overvalued. So I'm looking at somebody, I'm not going past 20 million, but I'm looking at somebody that's kind of that not necessarily fringe starter. You might be able to get somebody that's clearly a starter, but a number 2 is what you're looking for. Maybe a really, really good number 3. I would say Jennings fits that bill, but Jennings' style, I'm just not interested anymore. I need somebody that can separate. And if I'm spending money, it's going to be on somebody that can separate. Jennings cannot separate, even if he is capable of putting up some numbers, scoring 9 touchdowns. It's not the style I'm interested in anymore.
I think wide receiver is a priority. I was actually thinking you could do with like a Romeo Dobbs or even a Keenan Allen necessarily might not be, because Keenan Allen's not going to be expensive. I haven't watched Keenan Allen closely enough, but
he's a good route runner, but he's not really separating anymore because he was already a slow wide receiver. He's the Jennings on steroids in terms of career, right? A guy that never had speed, wasn't highly drafted, but is good at route running, so he was capable of separating, but once he lost a step, not really separating anymore. But Romeo Dobbs, I do like. If you look at some of the separation numbers, I believe he's top 10 in terms of average separation on targets on next gen stats. So there is potential there. I am a little worried that he was constantly kind of dinged up and stuff.
yeah,
But he did play through it more than the wide receivers the Niners have had. But Dobbs, I think, is somebody that's, if not at the top of the list, a very likely target because he probably does come in at the $15 to $20 million range, and he does fit the separator that I think the Niners are looking for.
let me ask you this wide receiver question. Last year, Kendrick Bourne put up 551 yards and 15 yards per catch. Do you think you could get that from Sky Moore if they brought Sky Moore back? You don't think so?
No, Sky Moore wasn't even running routes when Malik Turner was. So that tells me no.
But he'll have a whole offseason. He'll have a whole training camp.
And
you
blah,
know
blah,
that
blah.
whole thing. Now, he's never done that in his career, to be fair. In fact, he's basically done half of that in his career. Because I feel like if you thought you could get that from Sky Moore, you re-sign him, which probably is not going to be a very big contract. And I just feel like that makes it lessens the priority a little at wide receiver.
No, see, I'm not against signing Sky Moore because of the returning, but he's a non-factor at wide receiver. They had how many injuries at wide receiver, and that guy was healthy all year and couldn't take the opportunity? Like, no. Clearly, he's not good enough as a wide receiver.
I have wide receiver as a need as well. You could put this one at both because you can get really good wide receiver. You don't have to draft a wide receiver in the first round to get a really good player. So you should do both. Sign somebody and get one in the draft. I had it on my list as well. Yeah, I don't love this free agent class of wide receivers is not really making me jump up and shout. I want no part of George Pickens. I know he's really good, but he's crazy. Alec Pierce is really good, but also he's going to be really expensive. I don't really want them to win the bidding war for him.
And I said last week, there's risk there. Like, I know the numbers are exciting in terms when you just look at the average yards per catch. But as I said, average separation, he's worse than Jennings in terms of targets. And he has a career high of 47 catches. Are you really going to pay $25 to $30 million a year for a guy who is yet to even catch 50?
Do you think that they can get more out of Demarcus Robinson than we saw last year? Only had 276 yards in 14 games, just the one touchdown that came against the Colts. He's a solid veteran player. Do you think that he can pick up some of the load?
I think he can pick up some. He did start to shine a little bit more at the end of the year. I think he struggled with missing time early, and then this system, I listened to some of your Vish episode this week, and I think Vish kind of missed what you were saying when you said, does Kyle need to make it easier? And he was saying, it's up to the guys. Well, now what you were saying is that Kyle Shanahan's system is more difficult than anybody else's for a wide receiver that's new to the team. You weren't saying how Vish took it, where they just can't learn the system as if it's a normal system. It's not a normal system. I think Kyle places way too much value on wide receiver blocking. And if you can't block as a wide receiver, you're not getting on the field unless it's third down. And that's just frankly asinine. I think that's why rookies don't get on the field, because you can't tell me it's about, well, they didn't know how to line up, because Kendrick Bourne was still playing when he didn't know how to line up. I think it has to do with your wide receivers coming from college. It's extremely rare that they can block, and Kyle won't play them if they can't block.
Well, whatever. Like I said to Vish, they got Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback trained up enough to be able to function to win 5 games when he got traded halfway through the year. So clearly, I know they can change things up when they need to help people that don't have the full complement of time to learn the system or can't learn the system for whatever reason. I'm just saying, do the same thing at wide receiver, especially in a year like last year when they were so depleted at the position. They don't seem to be willing to want to do that. That's another reason why I think you need a veteran guy in free agency, because Kyle will trust that guy a little more. And then also you can supplement in the draft as well. All right. Priority number 3 for you in free agency.
Well, we've already kind of talked about it. Safety. Okay. They do need to bring in a vet. And I have it 3 because I'm not convinced they have to go out and get a Kevin Byard, but I think they do need somebody with starting experience, a veteran. So it's on the list, but I can't put it number 1, because to me, if you're putting it number 1, you're saying go spend a lot of money at it, especially with the Niners salary cap situation. So I don't necessarily think they need to spend a lot of money at it, but I don't think that they should be doing this bargain shopping at either. I don't think they should sit and go, well, we'll wait, and whatever starting guy doesn't sign, we'll try to get for a vet minimum or $2 to $3 million a year. I think they should go target the guy that they see as a good fit. And if they got to spend 10 million, 15 million, I'm okay with that. But also if that guy can come at 5, 6, 7, 8 million, I mean, you don't have that many safeties that are in that middle tier. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's a lot of, all right, 1 year prove it deal for 3 million, or they get a multi-year contract for 15 plus million. There's not much in the middle for safety. So you might be able to find a bargain, but I don't mean bargain shopping as in wait until they go on clearance.
Yeah, that's the 49ers tend to do that sometimes at that position. All right. My next one for free agent, this was like, I was running myself in circles. So maybe you could help me work through this. I was like, offensive line, Tyler Linderbaum is right there with the Ravens if he's not franchise, which I don't think he will be, because I believe they didn't pick up his 5th-year option.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, damn. But then I was like, he's going to be expensive because he's a free agent, so you have to win the bidding war. And I think part of the thing they like about Brendel is he's cheap as hell. He only costs $5.2 million against the cap. He's older, but he's a good run blocker. He knows the system. He helps with the protections. We know all the responsibilities the center has. But my thing is like, look, he's a free agent after this season anyway. You need a body. Like, somebody has to play center for this team after Jake Brendel. He's not going to play forever. Why not sign Linderbaum now? And that'll help with the transition. Maybe you play Linderbaum at guard, possibly at left guard. You could, if you end up not having to draft.
He's not going to sign for somebody that tells him, oh, play guard for a year. He's the top center on the market and one of the best in the league. 2, you don't take your better player and say you change positions so the worst guy can keep his
fine
position.
And see if Brendel will move. But I think you can have both of them on the roster is my point. And you're going to have to plan for life after Brendel anyway. So, it doesn't always work out perfectly in terms of we don't have anyone under contract. Oh, here's a perfect guy to replace this person at the exact same time. Sometimes that happens a year early. Like now, I think it would be to just say we can't possibly do it because we have 34-year-old Jake Brendel, I think would be a mistake. I think they absolutely should pay up for Linderbaum. There's other guards on the market too, if you want to go there, if you want them to go guard instead of center. But some interior offensive line position. You cannot just say, we'll find someone in round 4 of the draft with one of our comp picks for both of the, like, no. You got to spend on one of those in free agency.
Yeah, I thought about putting offensive line on my list for free agency, but I ultimately didn't. And the reason why is the offensive line wasn't a weakness this past year. It wasn't good, but it wasn't a weakness either. So I don't necessarily feel like oh, this is definitely something that they have to go out and spend money on to address. I would love Linderbaum. 2 weeks ago, I had a hot take of signing and resetting the market. The current market for the top center is 18 million a year. I said, go give him 20 million and bring him in. I would give that an A+ grade if they did that, but I don't know that it is a huge need. I think there are bigger needs and things that, because they are bigger needs, you need to go get a for sure thing, and that's why I have defensive end at the top. That's why I have safety on there. That's why I think wide receiver you have to address in free agency and the draft. So they have to be in the top three. And I just view defensive end, it's harder to find a speed rusher to complement in the draft. I don't want them spending a high draft pick on it because they have Nick Bosa, they have Williams. Don't go spending a first or second round pick. And even that second round pick, edge rushers do not pan out very well. And that's not just for the 49ers. That's like league wide. A lot of your elite pass rushers are highly drafted guys from the first round. So I think it's a mistake to wait to try to address that and find somebody. So defensive end has to be on there. Wide receiver has to be on there. And to me, safety is they have to address it and they have to get a veteran because they already have the young guys. So those three outweigh, even though I would like to see an upgrade and I would be all for spending big money on a free agent to address center.
I would love to see it. I would be okay if they reset the market. Like, I think they have enough in the cap, especially after they do whatever they're going to do with Trent Williams and Nick Bosa. I think his number will get reworked as well. I think they can make a big purchase if they want to. Tyler Linderbaum, I would absolutely love if they did. Even if, oh no, Jake Brendel's a backup. Great. He only costs $5 million anyway. Like, that's fine. I like the upgrade. I think it would be.
I can cut Brendel. Free and clear.
Keep him. Why not have him? It's okay to have a good backup, right? Everybody wants a good backup at quarterback. Why not have a good backup on the offensive line? The other thing with Brendel, too, that they love is that he plays. For the most part, he's there all the time, every week, which you can't say that about a lot of 49ers, but I think they absolutely should go out and do it. Here's where I kind of twisted myself up in knots as I was prepping for the show. I went and I looked and I was like, man, should they spend at guard? I don't know. Well, if you look at some of the top 5 highest paid guards or the top 5 free agent guards, not a lot of them come in the first round. The best guys you can get outside of the first round. And so it's like, well, damn, if I can get a really good player on a rookie contract, that's the best combination of all time. So maybe you don't go out in free agency and do that. But then I looked at the top centers in the league, and a lot of those guys aren't picked in the first round either. In fact, sometimes they're picked even later than the guards. So then I was like, well, should we spend any money in free agency? But I think at one of the spots, that's why I had it on my list. So if you want it to be guard or center, whatever, pick it. But Linderbaum, to me, seems like the best player of any of the interior linemen that are available. So go out and get him and beef up the offensive line, help you compete with Seattle in the division, which is obviously going to be a thing. So that's what I had on my list.
To steal one of your lines, it can be both. Yes, they can be lowly drafted. Guards and centers, usually top ones, are lowly drafted. They're not highly drafted. But there's also quite a few of top ones that are paid in free agency. They're bought through free agency.
Yes.
So both things can be true there. I don't trust the 49ers to draft and get one because show me the guard or center that they've drafted that was just great. Pooney is okay, and he fell into their lap because everybody got hurt. Other than him, like, nothing's panned out. Like, you can say Aaron Banks. No thanks. I think he was massively overrated. And he was a second-round pick that you got 3 years of mediocre starting out of. That's it, because he redshirted his rookie season. Mm-hmm. So to me, that is a waste of a second-round pick, or not a good value of a second-round pick. But I keep having this feeling over the last couple of years, and I keep falling further and further into thinking maybe that is a good strategy. And that is spend your free agent money on the cheap positions, the positions that don't get massively expensive, and then spend your draft capital on the massively expensive ones, And unless you get like an MVP all-pro caliber one at those expensive positions, you do not pay them. You let them go after the 4 years. And so what that would mean is pay a safety, pay a center, pay a guard. Or if you just want to do this from offensive line, pay your center, pay your guard, but the tackles, do not pay them. Just keep drafting them every year so that you have somebody to plug in once they go to free agency and they get their big contract. On defense, that means spend on a defensive tackle, don't spend on a defensive end, draft the defensive ends. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know that this front office would be very good at it because at some of those positions, they've been terrible at drafting. You want to only build through the draft with players on rookie deals at defensive end when the team has missed on every single defensive end other than the no-brainer one. Not necessarily a great strategy for the 49ers, but I do think as a GM taking over a team, that would be an interesting strategy. I'm going to spend my free agent dollars on the positions that don't really go past 20 million. You know, I'm not spending free agent dollars on 30, 40 million guys, $30 million guys that haven't played for my team and may not be great fits once they get here. But I'm going to constantly draft those positions so that then my free agent money can be spent on the cheaper positions.
I agree with you, and I think a lot of the league agrees with you. That's why you see pass rushers go so early in the draft, because people are like, number one, they're hard to find. Number two, it's cheaper if you get them in the draft. And number three, those guys never become free agent. Like Reggie White was a free agent. That would never happen today. He's never hitting the market today. Like they just don't become available. That the elite of the elite guys, it's almost impossible.
They come available through draft picks, like Micah Parsons. That's how you get them.
But that's absurd. They never should have traded Mike. That's why the Cowboys.
Well, I know, but my point is whether you're spending first-round picks in the draft to draft one, or you're spending 2 first-round picks to trade for one. Either way, you're spending the draft capital.
Right, but then Green Bay also had to pay Micah Parsons too, so they did both. They made him as expensive as he could possibly be, and I'm not saying it wasn't worth it. By the way, he's a fantastic player. Okay, so those are the free agent priorities. Now let's get to the draft, the positions of priority in the draft for you. Again, this was your idea, so I'll let you go first.
Wide receiver has to be number one because even if they sign somebody in free agency, they could go spend the money to get Alec Pierce. Even if they do that, I think they absolutely have to take a wide receiver in the first or second round. That's the only position that I feel like, regardless of what they do in free agency, they have to draft in the first or second round a wide receiver because there's too much need. There's too many spots to fill at wide receiver. So even though I want them to find a starting caliber wide receiver in free agency, but not push past the 20 million, I have wide receiver there. It's something that I hate it because Kyle doesn't play his wide receivers early. Debo's the only one that got tons of playing time as a rookie. Ayuk got playing time, but he was still also treated as you're stupid rookie kind of thing. Kyle doesn't play wide receivers early. Kyle has a mental fixation and frankly, I don't know what you want to call it, a mental block of being way too hard on young wide receivers. And I think it's because he sees himself and goes, well, I was able to be a good blocker at a wide receiver, so why can't they? And it's, yeah, you could be a good blocker at a wide receiver because that's all you brought to the damn table.
Again, what do I always say with Kittle, right? Blocking is the second best thing he does. Blocking is important for wide receivers, no question about it. It's still the second most important job that they have. And Kyle, I think sometimes he doesn't look at it that way. I definitely have wide receiver on my list as well. I don't know that it has to be in the first round. You can get good wide receivers at other rounds, but it's a must-have coming out of the draft. At some point, you got to invest in it early. I think I'm getting really good 2010 vibes from this draft. Let me take you back to 2010. Toy Story 3 was the #1 movie in America. Do you remember what happened in the draft in 2010 for the 49ers?
Is that the Nate Davis draft?
It's the Anthony Davis draft. The Niners took Anthony Davis at 11, and then they took Mike Iupati at 17. They spent 2 top 20 picks in the same year on the offensive line. And by the way, that wasn't Jim Harbaugh, which everyone likes to give Jim Harbaugh credit for his offensive line. That was Mike Singletary. That was Singletary's last draft as head coach of the 49ers. So when Harbaugh arrived, he had Joe Staley, he had Upati, he had Anthony Davis. His offensive line was basically built when he got there. So it wasn't like he was investing first-round draft picks in offensive linemen every year, even though everybody likes to give him credit for having a great offensive line. But if you get, because you're going to need a tackle at some point, like you have to get a swing tackle, you need a body and you need an eventual replacement for Trent Williams. If you don't get a guard or a center in free agency, you're going to have to restock there. You could make the argument they should draft all three offensive line positions in this draft: center, guard, and tackle. I need like a 2010 draft from this 49ers team.
So I'll just jump to my number 2 because it is offensive line. I'm okay with them going first round, second round at offensive line. I'm okay with them doing. It would have to be the top guy because I think there's only one worthwhile. But I'm okay with them going guard first round if that guy is there and they decide, you know what, we're done playing games with this. But I would want an offensive tackle in the first. If they don't go offensive tackle in the first, then in the second round, I think you're right. Center, guard, offensive tackle, all of those are on the board. I'm not in favor of going center. I would be extremely hesitant at going guard in the first round. But I think that early on, I think this is as clear as it has been in many years for the 49ers. The top of the draft, assuming that there's not a run on one of these positions that ruins it, should absolutely be offensive line and wide receiver. Those should be the first 2 picks. I don't think you reach because of that, but it's also 2 positions that tend to have tons of depth in the first and second round.
I think this is what you do if you're the 49ers, because I agree on the positional priorities that you named. So you're at 27 in the first round, unless, let's just say they're at 27, right?
It's my lucky number, by the way, so it's going to work out.
Oh, okay, good. I'm sure that why are we even doing this show then?
Yeah, exactly.
You sit there if you're the 49ers and you watch. You have your grades for all the positions and just sit there. And when you get to 27, take a look. Is there a guard we like? Is there a center, a tackle, or a wide receiver? And then if you don't love the offensive lineman, don't necessarily default to wide receiver. Ask yourself, how many good wide receivers are there in this draft? If you think there's only one, then take him there. But if not, if there's multiple, then don't take him there. Don't reach for the wide receiver just because you need it. Take the best player that's on the board at 27, center, guard, tackle, receiver. Or if you happen to find a really good defensive end, go with that. But I doubt that that's going to be there. But that would be my thing. Don't be like, well, we can't take a guard in the first round. Sure you can. Absolutely you can. Don't worry about that. Go for it.
I think if there's not a guy there that they love, or there's still a lot of depth at those positions, I'm a big trade down guy. Yeah, I think the value given when you trade down far outweighs the value of staying in most cases. There are some that's not the case because, like trading down when Nick Bosa was on the board, you stay there and you take him. But the value far outweighs. Like they could trade down from 27, get to, one of the first 5 picks in the second round, get a very similar player, and pick up an early third round pick by doing that. Maybe even a late second round if there's a team out there with 2 of them at that point. Like there are options there. And to me, I try to take myself out of it when I'm looking and when I'm talking about looking at myself as a GM. I don't go, oh, I really believe this guy is going to be a great player. And I get fixated because of that. And I say, no, I'm convinced that guy is the guy. No, I don't go individual like that. I go, what is the positional depth? How much depth do I think is here with similar value? Oh, is there 5 guys left? Okay, I'm willing to trade down, 5, 6, maybe 7 spots. If it's, oh, there's only 1 or 2 guys left here that at a position of need that I want to take, okay, I'm going to stay put and take them. That's how I look at it. I don't go, ooh, this one prospect I'm convinced is a star, so I am not trading out and taking that one guy. No, because evaluations are wrong so often. 50% of draft picks, the team completely missed on.
Everybody.
Not even like, yeah, not even, oh, well, he wasn't as good as we thought, but he still had value. No, they completely missed on him to where they amount to literally nothing. So take yourself out of it, because you have to recognize that you're fallible. And because you're fallible, it doesn't matter how convinced you are of this one guy. You just got to look at the positional depth, or the depth at the positions that you're wanting to draft early, and whether or not you can still get a similar guy if you trade down.
And Vish and I have talked about that exact thing. And I feel like what you described is how a coach would look at the draft, right? A head coach, like, oh, look at what I can do with this guy. I could, remember when Kyle Shanahan was on the plane drawing up plays for Trey Lance? I'm sure he has visions of what he wants to do with all these guys. And I think sometimes he gets too attached to the guy, and he's like, screw the draft value. I need this guy. And that is a mistake. I feel like a general manager like a Howie Roseman is going to do what you said. Howie's going to be like, yeah, this guy's cool, but there's 3 other guys that we think are basically the same player. Maybe they're a little worse, but they're basically the same guy, and we can get them later. And I think that Kyle, sometimes he gets like, stars in his eyes, and he wants who he wants. And it's like, if your scouts are awesome and you never miss, go for it. But most of the time, all teams miss.
I think Howie Roseman does both things. He is willing to trade down. He doesn't get fixated on the one player. But when there is a position of need and there's one guy left, he's willing to trade up and be aggressive to go get that guy. And he does that in the veteran market too. Oh, we really need a guy. I don't care about them draft picks. Fuck them draft picks.
Oh,
attitude. And he'll go get the veteran that they need, because he won't sit here and say, oh, I don't want to give up my second round pick, because I could get a star that's cheap with that second round pick. He goes, no, I'm going to go get the star now and try to win a Super Bowl. And I'll worry about the future later. I can always trade veterans on our team to recoup some draft picks. That's Howie Roseman. And also, oh, by the way, he might just be really good at evaluating talent in some manner that others cannot figure out and cannot duplicate.
And yet the 49ers beat Howie Roseman's team in the playoffs this year in their own house, which just goes to show it takes a village, right? It's not just one thing.
It takes a quarterback who's not scared to throw the ball.
I don't want to get into a whole Jalen Hurts discussion. Okay. We've got more to say on this show, but just want to remind everybody, if you're going to make picks on the big game, do it with Sleeper. We've been telling you about it all year long. Plenty of time to get your picks in. You can see on the screen right now, they have a ton of picks, and super, this time of year, they have crazy picks. Like, what songs will be played at halftime? Like, all the special picks that you like, the Gatorade, all that stuff. It's all up there now. So go and check it out. And they have the regular picks too, where you just pick higher or lower on different statistical categories. And if you get your picks right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. So download the app. It doesn't just have picks. You can see there's fantasy, there's scores, there's a social feed on there as well, keeping you up to date on the latest news, like the Lions fan that's suing DK Metcalf for $100 million. Everything you want is on there. I know. I see your face. I know. He's biting his tongue right now. But go check it out. Sign up. And if you do, you'll get a free $20 entry. And if you want to deposit money, if you use our code GSP, you can see it on the screen, you get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So please go and do it. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Is there something you wanted to say about that Lions fan, Levin?
The situation altogether. He's not suing if he actually said the N-word. The NFL has proof. There were players mic'd up. DK Metcalf, there's video where you can hear what's said. And it was hard for us to hear it because it's somebody's phone video. But I guarantee the NFL has isolated the audios and figured out exactly what words were said. The fact that they haven't said anything about it tells me that no, the N-word was not said. Now, I'm not saying I guarantee it wasn't, but I have a hard time believing this guy is dumb enough to sue, knowing that the evidence is out there and the evidence is going to come forward because of this lawsuit. And if the evidence comes forward and it's, yep, you said the N-word, like, why would he do that? So that tells me he didn't say it, in which case, yeah, absolutely. Now he doesn't deserve 100 million, but the guy deserves a huge payday because DK Metcalf defamed him. Chad Ochocinco defamed him. And oh, by the way, he was then assaulted by DK Metcalf, is what that means. So I see people attacking this guy for suing for 100 million, but I do think the guy, assuming that the evidence shows that he did not say the N-word, deserves a payday because he was wronged and he was defamed. There are people that have literally been going after this guy in his personal life because they said that he said the N-word.
I have no idea what he said or didn't say, but it wasn't going to be the end of it. When this guy was holding a press conference after the fact, I knew it was like, okay, this story is not over, and we'll see where ultimately all that goes. I could just tell something about it was bothering. I could see the rage percolating behind your eyes. So that's why I just wanted to ask you about that. We got a couple of super chats that I want to get to. People have been waiting. John Brown, 9572, thank you, says, Trey McBride's substation critique and York's dismissal, rebutted by Christian McCaffrey, show the 49ers have a perception problem. If stars feel ignored, free agents won't sign. It may not be science, but it's perception for sure. I don't think that this would be a big deal at all. This is a super weak topic, right? It bubbled up. It's an offseason topic. It bubbled up. Then everybody is here in San Francisco. It's like the perfect storm. So they can ask people about the substation. If this Super Bowl was it somewhere else, nobody would be asked about that. I don't think this is going to be a thing at all. I think agents might try and squeeze a little more money out of the 49ers. I do believe that because that's an agent's job. But I don't think it's going to stop free agents from signing. We've seen the 49ers spend big money on free agents. We just mentioned Javon Hargrave. The substation was there. Like, I don't think that it's going to stop free agents from signing.
And the Niners are pretty highly ranked in terms of player satisfaction when they do that poll, which I think they've now stopped doing. They did it for a few years, and then there was
no, the owners don't like it, but yeah. I think they're going to still. I think the NFLPA says we're still going to do it.
Oh, are they? Okay, I thought they had agreed not to do it, but I guess I could be wrong. But yeah, the Niners are usually top 10 in that. So, is there the potential that there's one guy that's a free agent that they want to sign and he's a tinfoil hat wearing guy? Yeah. There's the potential that there's a free agent out there that goes, I'm not playing for that team because of that substation because they believe it. But I don't think that this is a widely held belief. And I think, Frank, I'm just going to say it, it's a belief held by people who are freaking morons and don't know how to read studies. Because if you go read all the studies on EMF, all of them say there's no evidence that this has any long-term effects or anything on people. It's literally some moron like Chase Sr. throwing it out there with no basis in science. I don't think he's capable of reading a science journal, the more I see Chase Sr., and people picked it up because he has an audience.
And because that guy is also the guy that like started pushing all this is also trying to sell you stuff too. I'm just pointing that out. He's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Anyway, let's get to another super chat. Roadhog 2284 says, Dante Whitner says we need angry savages with off-field issues like him and Goldson. No more good locker room guys. I always say there's room in every locker room for one slappy, for lack of a better term. One person that is a little crazy that may get in trouble off the field. If you've got a bunch of good guys and you've got one of those guys that you make an exception for because their physical talent is so incredible, you can handle that. But it's a very slippery slope. It's a tightrope to walk. And to me, it's just easier. I think you can build great rosters without it. And the 49ers have built great rosters without it.
Yeah. So off-field issues, I take as he means like guys that are not necessarily good teammates, not guys that are out there being criminals, right? Because Whitner and Goldson, they were outspoken. They wanted their money. They were they were the type that would point at the name on the back of their jersey after making a play. Put it that way. Not necessarily good locker room guys, but not out there being criminals, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember anything with Whitner. I think Goldson might have had one thing. But yeah, I'm okay with that type of off-field issue. I'm not okay with bringing in criminals. I have no interest in guys like Rice from Kansas City. If I was an owner of a team and I had a player that is multiple times done stupid things like Rice, he's gone. I don't care how good you are. You're gone. Same with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill should be forced into retirement. The guy's a grade A POS. So I'm not okay with that, but I do think the defense needs somebody that's fiery because that went away with Greenlaw, and there's nobody doing that from the safety position. That's my biggest complaint with Winters and why I'm not opposed to signing a linebacker. As I mentioned last week, I'm wanting to spend money on Devin Bush if they can get him, because Winters was unimpressive to me in two ways. Can he make plays? Is he fast? Yeah, but he doesn't do anything to rally the guys, and he can't communicate. When Bethune got on the field, suddenly the communication issues went away. When Eric Hendricks got on the field, suddenly the communication got better. Winters is terrible as a middle linebacker, getting guys in the right spots. So I want an upgrade from Winters, and I want somebody that's more like Greenlaw. He's going to be demonstrative. He's going to be in the face of the opponent and kind of bringing that energy.
I think you saw a difference between how D Winters can look with Fred Warner when Fred's doing, making all the calls and getting everybody in position, and D Winters can just go hunt and chase and tackle. He looks awesome. He rips the hell out of people. I love it. When Fred is not there, he looks like a different player. And that's not meant to, I don't necessarily want that to be a huge knock on D Winters. That's the effect that great players can have on your defense and your team. But I wouldn't mind seeing a bunch more physical, like physical with an F, so to speak, guys. Like Fred Warner is rah-rah. He's not like a massive hitter. Because he's not a huge guy. Like when Greenlaw would hit people, bam, they would stop moving and they would go, like he would smash them. Fred hits the guy, and a lot of times the guy kind of carries Fred for a few steps. Like he's just not that kind of hitter. Every defense could use more of those kinds of hitters, and we'll see if the Niners can add them this offseason. Smells like foot in here. Says, I hope they reach in the first round for a defensive lineman coming off an ACL tear with a bad back. Pettis' potential with Reuben Foster's character. I need to see them trusting the process. That's well done.
Yeah.
I saw a funny comment about Trent Baalke hid the impact of the electrical substation by just drafting everybody that already had a torn ACL.
Yeah. I'm glad that era is over. And the point that I would take from this is look at all those issues they've done with first and second round guys. Pettis was a second round pick. Didn't have the mental makeup to make it in the NFL. Was very weak-minded. Reuben Foster, I don't really blame that pick because the potential was massive, and it's kind of worth the risk at a certain point because that was a top 5 talent. So
he got sent home from the combine, from the medical check.
Nice.
Like you couldn't even hold it together enough on a job interview.
So that's why he wasn't. I mean, he was going to be taken in top 10 up until that. So that's why he was available at the end of the first.
Roadhog 2284 says the substation has no effect on Warner. Just cloned Fred. Yeah, don't think Whitner meant criminals. Just chip on the shoulder guys. Chip on the shoulder guys are fine. I'm all for that. But yeah, like I said, when it comes to off-field issues, you got to be very careful. It's a fine. I know Jordan Addison was a name that kept coming up for wide receiver because he's a good wide receiver, and the Niners need one. The trouble with him is he's been arrested 3 times since he's come into the league.
Yeah. No, thank you. I don't need that type of character, guys. I don't want to root for those people on a selfish, personal level.
The older I get,
I don't want to go win a Super Bowl and the guy that scores the game-winning touchdown or gets the game-sealing interception is some crappy human being that I'm sitting here in the moment that I should be the happiest going in the back of my mind, like celebrating, but at the same time feeling a little bit of guilt for celebrating that guy's accomplishment.
You just said something that's going to get a lot of fans riled up because they're going to say, I don't care if the Niners had a team of those guys. If they win the Super Bowl, they win the Super Bowl. And I get that because sports is a release and an entertainment for a lot of people. But me personally, I don't know. The older I get, the more that stuff matters to me. And maybe I'm in the minority there and I totally understand why. But for me, that's not the way I want to go. All right, Levin, before we wrap up for today, there's one more thing we have to do.
Hold on. Let's quickly review our top three so that it's clear to everybody, because we were saying one ranking and then kind of talking larger. So I got free agency, defensive end, wide receiver, safety. What do you got for free agency?
I have safety, defensive line, interior offensive line.
All right. For draft, I have wide receiver, O-line, and then we talked about it, but I didn't say that it's my number 3, but I have defensive tackle because they need somebody, but I'm okay with that being a lesser need than O-line and wide receiver.
I have wide receiver, interior offensive line, defensive line in the draft.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear because I know as a listener of podcasts, when people do a rankings and they don't review it at the end to make it clear what the rankings, I go, I don't remember what the whole list was over an hour.
Sure, just grab the steering wheel of the show, just steer us into a bridge embankment. That's fine.
I'm kind of like the driver's ed instructor, right? I'm not driving, but I can sure take control when I need to.
Me and Vish had a whole extended driver's ed analogy on the show. I don't know if
I did not get to that point. No.
That's funny that you brought that up. Anyway, before we go, Levin's hot takes. All right, sir. What do you got for us this week?
I'm revisiting one because in watching the rise of the 49ers, they just made it all the more relevant. When they talked about how Bill Walsh had a philosophy of you'd rather let a guy go 1 year early than late. And that comes with Trent Williams. I said this, it's been about a month. I'm not giving him a new deal. He has a $38 million cap hit. Yep, that sucks, but guess what? They have $50 million of cap space even with that. So I'm writing it out. I'm telling him, hey, look, after this year, we'll talk, and if you're wanting to still play, we can talk about a 1 year deal. But with Trent Williams, I'm at the point of I want 1 year deals going forward. You can retire when you want. We can decide we're done when we want, if you want to keep playing. But at this point, there's enough signs of regression or falling off that I'm worried the wheels will fall off. And I don't want to have 2-3 years left on the deal. Trent Williams allowed the most pressures on the team this year. That's just the straight fact of it. He allowed the most pressures on the team. Is he still good? Yeah. Is he great? No. He has started falling off. He's going to be 38 years old. I want 1 year deal. I don't want 2 more years of him being expensive. And if after this year, if he has another mediocre year, I walk away.
Well, I believe next year he's under contract. No. 2027 is a void year. So this is his last year under contract.
Yeah.
Here's
the 1 year.
He's got a $34 million cap hit this
38.
year. Or 38, excuse me. The Niners are going to want to knock that down. Well, they can't do that unless he agrees to rework the contract. So if he says, hey, I want another year, and they say no, he's like, okay, that's great. I'm not touching my contract. Go pound sand.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. They're going to have all this cap space even with that. So I just absorb that hit and get the crazy expensive off of the contract, because if they redo it, they're just kicking the can down the road. They've already done that so many times. Go ahead and look at what the cap hit is on his first void year right now. I think it's like $28 million is his cap hit. Yep. If they let him walk. You don't want that growing even more. So they're going to have essentially a dead cap hit of $28 million if they don't have Trent Williams in 2027. Right. They don't give him another contract. So to me, I think you got to kind of rip the Band-Aid off at this point and just absorb that. And then if he has another year where, like, I think that the fall off leveled out and he has another year like this past year, okay, I'll give you a 1 year deal for $25 million. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the way you go. You are okay with the potential that he plays well. He gets to free agency and he says, I'm out. I'm going to sign with this team. And because at this point, I think you're at I don't want to have him signed when the wheels fall off. And I want to take the Bill Walsh type of mentality of, yeah, he might have a year left. Don't care.
Well, here's the trouble is that he always has the 49ers over a barrel because they can't just let him walk because they never have a replacement. They never, they haven't.
That's why O-line is number 2.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I just think that that's sort of the scenario that they're in. Kyle's never willing to be like, all right, let him walk. See, this is again another spot where I feel like a real general manager, not like John Lynch, like a real general manager would be like, Kyle, it's just not a good allocation of resources. You got to let him walk and we'll figure it out. But I think Kyle, the coach in Kyle, number one, I think he loves Trent as a guy. But number
Yeah.
two is like, I got to have this guy. He's so good at left tackle. Like, I think it prevents him from seeing the bigger picture sometimes. But this is, I don't want to call this a spicy take from you because I kind of agree. I think this is a logical, sound take.
All right. Well, how about this one?
I'm sure you'll disappoint me.
Outside of the top 5 wide receivers, give or take 1 or 2, depending on what's going on in the league at that particular time that you're talking, I would not pay a wide receiver 25 plus million. And I am coming more into believing this because of what we've seen. One, a lot of your top paid wide receivers in the league, they start coasting. I believe that is something inherent to that position because that position is it breeds selfishness because they don't get the ball unless the quarterback decides they get the ball. So it breeds, that's why you see the prima donnas, the divas, as they call it, things like that, because that's inherent to the position. They have to say, hey, look at me, give me the ball in order to get the ball. So I'm not willing to pay a wide receiver 25 plus million unless he is top 5 at his position. And I will point at this last year. The Niners passing game was able to still produce without a NFL quality wide receiver on the field. They had Kendrick Bourne doing back-to-back 140 yard games. So I look at it as I'm going to draft wide receiver frequently, and I will sign some bargain receivers in free agency, but I'm not paying big money. If I draft somebody and they pan out and they're good, they're a Deebo Samuel, they're a Brandon Ayuk, guess what? After that 3rd year, I'm trading them and recouping the draft capital and drafting another guy.
So it's funny you mentioned 25 is the watermark. Jamar Chase gets 40. He's at 40 million. Then it's Justin Jefferson at 35, CeeDee Lamb at 34, DK Metcalf at 33, Garrett Wilson at 32.5, and AJ Brown at 32. 25 million a year is Devontae Smith. That's where he's at. Nico Collins is at 24.2. Debo got 23.8 this year. My God. So you're not like the wide receiver market is incredibly high. So you're basically saying if you draft a guy and if he's a stud, okay, pay him. But if he's not like a stud of studs, forget it. Pick up the 5th option you want.
And I'm not doing it off of 1 year. Deebo Samuel, 1 year in a contract year. Oh, look, he wasn't the same after. Same with Brandon Ayuk. Now, injury kind of took away what we could see from him, and I think the injury has messed with his mind a good bit, as well as the team basically never having his back. And let's call it what it is. The front office has always been like, he's here. So I will pay a Jamar Chase. I will pay a Justin Jefferson. I am not paying a Nico Collins. Deebo Samuel, if he had the, if we take when he got the money and fast forward it to this year, his market rate is closer to 30 million. Same with Brandon Ayuk, it was close to 38 million. That's what I'm saying. Like you're looking at what people got, but the market has moved. Jamar Chase's deal moved the market. So I think you're talking about the guys that aren't the elite of the elite, that next tier down, which is what Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel would have been valued in the year that they got their deals. That's the market that I'm out of. I'm not paying those guys. I would rather get draft picked by trading them and trying to find some production.
The Brandon Ayuk contract, for as much as the 49ers keep telling everybody how much they hate it and act like it's so terrible, he's at 30 million. He's like 7 or 8 in terms of average per year. It is not like that crazy of a deal. Now, he got hurt, obviously, and so you got nothing for it, and that's what annoys people. But like if he was having a typical Brandon Ayuk year, I don't think anybody would look at that contract and be like, oh, it's the worst deal ever. It's so terrible. I really don't. I thought it was fine when they did it. It hasn't worked out since they did it. No question about that. But I don't think that even though we were all ticked off because the process, he was traded, he wasn't traded, yada, yada, yada. But just like zoom out, it was like they signed this player who was capable of putting up this level of production for this amount. I don't think it was the worst decision at the time.
Yeah. And this is something that has changed in the last 2 years for me. You know, I was in favor of paying Brandon Ayuk. I would not be in favor of paying somebody in that situation today. And it's changed not just because Brandon Ayuk didn't pan out, but like Devontae Smith, you know, he's somebody that's been healthy. He's somebody that's produced. Am I paying $25 million for his borderline 1,000 yards a season? No, that's not worth it. And it kind of gets back to what I was saying earlier about the undervalued positions. I would rather go sign the best center in the league or the best guard in the league for $20 million, which saves you some money, than sign a guy that can put up 1,000 yards as a, you know, bargain number one, good number two. I don't have interest in that. I would rather use those resources to go get somebody that I know is one of the best at their position at an undervalued position in free agency. I'd rather save that money for that.
Right. You have $20 million to spend. What would you rather spend it on? Wide receiver 15, 18 in the league, or center number one? Now, you could argue, does wide receiver affect your team more? I would say offensive line
center
affects your team more. Offensive line is, you know, they're everything. So I totally get what you're saying on that one. And that's, I mean, let me ask you this, like Jamar Chase is at 40. What do you think Alec Pierce is going to get? Do you think Alec Pierce is going to
I think he's getting over 30.
So he'll get more than Ayuk.
Yeah.
Ayuk is at 30.
I would be surprised just because I think one, as I said, the highest paid guys in free agency for wide receiver every year, the last like 5 years or so, has been like, whoa, they got that? Because teams are just so desperate for wide receivers. But then also teams are going to look at it and go, this is the best deep ball guy in the league. And I don't think he actually is. I think Alec Pierce is a good receiver, but as I said, his career high is 47 catches. If he was the best deep ball receiver in the league, he would get open more. He would have better separation than 2.2 yards average, which, as I said, is bottom 10 in the league, worse than Jennings. So Pierce, I think, will get to, like, he'll be around the 30. I think he probably ends up cresting just over the 30 because there's a lot of guys that are right at that 30 and he'll want to beat that. And some team will pay it.
JM617 says you can get both. Quit trying to save a billionaire money. I think maybe you haven't heard a lot of the shows, JM, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I am never trying to save billionaires money. I criticize Jed York constantly for not spending enough. I'm not saying it to save Jed York money. I'm saying it because there's a salary cap and they only, you can only spend so much on players, and how you choose to allocate your resources is, kind of important. So I'm not saying it to save Jed money. Please, I crushed Jed York last year for all the cash savings that he had letting those guys go, and a lot of the depth went out the door. So if maybe you haven't heard me, that's fine. I'm not about saving billionaires money.
Yeah, and I see the comments saying that Pickens was, I think, bottom 2 in separation in the league. No, that's not true. Next Gen Stats covers it. And again, that's directly from the NFL using actual machines and data to calculate, not somebody using their eyeball test. The bottom 2 were T. Higgins, and the reason I'm bringing this up, Mike Evans, which is why I don't care if Mike Evans wants to sign for vet minimum. I'm not signing him.
Well, and also George Pickens, to my eyes, is the best contested catcher in the NFL. So it's like, yeah, his separation may not be great, but he's awesome when there's a guy there.
Yeah. By the way, Alec Pierce is 4th worst in the league in this stat. Now, average separation, I should say, they calculate that on targets only. So they're not looking at plays where you didn't get the ball thrown your way. So maybe Pierce is a little bit better. But again, why is everybody salivating about Pierce? Because he averaged 20 yards per reception and he averaged like 18 or 19 the year prior. So people are salivating about the catches he did have. And the point that this shows is it's not like he was burning guys deep. It's that he was getting, you can say, maybe he's a great contested ball catcher. That's fine. But is Kyle Shanahan the type of coach that goes, oh, we're going to run this guy on a go route and throw it to him even if he doesn't have separation? No. When have we ever seen that from the 49ers offense under Kyle Shanahan.
That's a fair point. At McFly Niner says, if you spend on wide receiver but ignore center, left guard, defensive end, then you aren't spending your resources wisely. Look at the two teams in the Super Bowl, the two best teams in the trenches, particularly on defense this season. Yeah, I would say Seattle on defense for sure. On offense, like, name me another Seattle offensive lineman beyond Gray Zabel. And the only reason 49er fans know Gray Zabel is because they wanted the 49ers to draft him. We can't name the Seahawks offensive lineman. Most people can't anyway.
No, I can't name them all. It is crazy how far that offensive line has come, because just 3 years ago, it was considered the worst in the league.
Well, I mean, Geno didn't help that too. And you can look at Geno in Vegas and see the same thing. I think that Darnold is not a perfect quarterback, but he knows to get the damn ball out of his hands.
I think it's pretty clear Geno Smith was being propped up by talent around him. Because, good Lord, did he look bad this year?
Everybody wanted to sell the Geno Smith redemption story because he had a good game on Sunday Night Football and had a line in a post-game interview that made people laugh, even though it didn't actually make any sense. And it was like, oh, the league slept on Geno Smith. Nope. Turns out he sucked. He's still, even when he was like having his little resurgence, people kept telling me Geno Smith's a good quarterback. And I was like, where? If you look past the interceptions and the sacks, Geno Smith is a good quarterback.
I mean, I think that's a little far. He did have a redemption. There was a point where he was a average starter in the league, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, there was a while there where people thought, oh, he's really good because he was putting up 400 yards rushing and 4,000 yards passing every year with 30 touchdowns total.
I was never in on the Geno Smith redemption story, and I proud of myself for that one. I feel like I got that one correct. I don't get them all correct. God knows I've been wrong about a lot. That one I feel like I got okay. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you, everybody. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Levin, I wanted to ask you, I should have asked you this off the air, but I'm doing it on the air. Are we doing a Super Bowl instant reaction show?
We can. I had not thought of it.
Is that what people in the chat let us know? Would you watch us do a Super Bowl instant reaction show that didn't involve the 49ers?
I mean, it might be something that gets censored by YouTube if Seattle wins, because it will just be a noose here in my spot. I don't even want to watch the Super Bowl. Like, I'm going to watch it, but I don't want to, because it's the team in the AFC that I want to win the least versus the team in the NFC that I want to win the least. Like, I'm rooting for the Patriots, but I'm not going to be rooting. But this might be the first Super Bowl in a long time that it's when the game is on that I'm getting up to go get snacks or a drink. And I'm waiting. I'm not getting up during commercials.
Come back for the commercials. By the way, if you do watch the Super Bowl, NBC just released a press release before we started recording. I was stunned. Kyle Shanahan's going to do the pregame. Kyle Shanahan, who hates the media and doing media appearances, is going to be a pregame analyst on NBC for the Super Bowl. I was like, did they drug him? Did they get him drunk when he agreed to do this? Like, how? I cannot believe it. I don't know what. Is there a clone of Kyle Shanahan walking around that I don't know about? Because look, this is year 10 with Kyle. If there's one thing we know, he does not look forward to talking to the media. And yet, on the biggest game of the year, he's going to be at the desk.
I think it's clear we are in some alternate timeline, because McVay just signed an extension and Kyle Shanahan's doing media.
Right. And the thought was that McVay may walk away. Les Snead signed an extension too. But yeah, very weird. I don't know if he's going to be on like remote satellite from Cabo or what, if he's actually going to be at the desk. Apparently he's going to be there, but I had to read the press release.
Miss Shanahan might do a linebacker Tate like the old Super Bowl commercial and take him out while he's sitting at the desk, because didn't he just say that his wife was angry that they had to delay vacation again so that he can hire a defensive coordinator? Well, they just hired it. Now he's sticking around to prep for this.
I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm interested to see what that's going to be like. Kyle Shanahan, analyst. Okay. Anyway, again, thank you, everybody. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk tomorrow.